that we use for multiple pregnancies. So before I start, I just want to remind you that in our setting and in Africa at large, mothers of twins receive insufficient care. This is because most of the mothers, they deliver in the rural areas and in the local clinics where they are followed up and examined using palpation and checking the fetal heartbeats using peanut stethoscopes, which we know that it's insufficient care for those mothers. I also want to remind you that in sub-Saharan Africa, that's where we have the world's highest naturally occurring twin rate, which is at around 18 per 1,000. And we also have the highest under 5 mortality rate. Of that high mortality rate, twins contribute about 10.7%, which is quite a significant value. Twins also contribute about 15% to the neonatal total neonatal mortality rate in sub-Saharan Africa. And just to remind you that in the African countries as well as Zimbabwe, there are no specific guidelines for the management and follow-up of twins and the management of complications that can occur in twins as well. So because of that, that's why we have a high mortality rate for the twins and also a high morbidity rate for the mothers as well. There is no specific training for scanning of multiple pregnancies, and this is why we came up with the dedicated multiple pregnancy clinics so that we can manage patients as well as train staff to manage multiple pregnancies better.
Good.
So for twins, we have to know that we need to chronicity early, because these two things, they are the most important determinant factors of prognosis. We cannot manage a twin when we do not know the chronicity. That's why I said they are being mismanaged. In most of the women with multiple pregnancies are being mismanaged in our country because they are followed up using palpation and checking heartbeats using the peanut stethoscope. By so doing, the midwives or the doctors who are doing that, they don't even know the chronicity of that particular pregnancy. In most of the cases, they don't even know also the gestational age. So for us, let us remember that we need to determine the gestational age and chronicity early because they have a prognostic value. Once we establish the chronicity, it's the most important determining factor of the surveillance, how we are going to be managing this particular pregnancy, the complications that we anticipate to face, the outcomes and morbidity and mortality for each type of multiple pregnancy. So for our unit, we have dedicated multiple pregnancy clinics. We have one clinic per week at Pari and Salim Mugabe hospitals. In these clinics are manned by fetal medicine specialists, obstetricians, and midwives. For each clinic, we perform risk assessment for each patient. We talk to the patient, and then we also check their blood pressures. Then we go on to scan. After scanning, we counsel the patient. I think Dr. Verenga has already explained why we take our time to counsel them. And then we manage the complications if there are any. The most common procedures that we perform include amnio drainage and feticide. For all the multiple pregnancies, we start following them up in the first trimester. We start by performing a first trimester scan, of which the most accurate time to do that is from 11 plus 0 to 13 weeks plus 6 days. On the first trimester scan visit, we confirm the type of gestation. Is it a twin pregnancy? Is it a triplet pregnancy? Is it a quadruplet or other higher order gestations? We confirm the fetal viability of each fetus, and we also confirm the pregnancy location. We assign chorionicity. By this, for this, we check the number of placental masses that can be located on scan, or we can use we assess the thickness of the amniotic membrane when it inserts onto the placenta. So if it's thick, like what is shown in this image, if it's thick like that, you can see this is the amniotic membrane where it's inserting on the placenta. If it's looking thick like that, then we call it a lambda sign, and it's evidence of a dichorionic pregnancy. If it's looking thin like that, this is the amniotic membrane looking very thin where it's inserting onto the placenta, then this will be a monochorionic pregnancy. We also label the twins. For example, we can say the twin who is on the right side of the mother is twin 1. The twin who is on the left side of the mother is twin 2. And after we have done that, we scan each twin accordingly and we follow them up accordingly. This will help to avoid mixing up the measurements and also the findings of the twins. We can also use gender if they have different gender, say one is male, the other one is female. We can also use gender to follow them up properly. We can also use the location of the placenta. Say the placenta is on the right upper segment or left lower segment. We also consider those things so that we don't mix up the examination or the assessments of the fetuses. The same visit, we screen for aneuploidies. Mainly in our unit, we are looking at trisomy 13, 18, 21, and Turner syndrome. We also look for major fetal abnormalities like holoprosencephaly. I think Dr. Verenga has already explained why we do this. And we screen for preeclampsia using uterine artery Doppler studies. If she screens positive, we commence them on aspirin 150 milligrams per day. We also just check for any adnexal masses. So if it's a monochorionic pregnancy, this can be a monochorionic diamniotic or monochorionic monoamniotic. We have scanned them at 12 weeks. For the follow-up, we scan them every 2 weeks thereafter from around 16 weeks. This is because twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome can start from around even before 16 weeks. So we follow them up every 2 weeks. At each visit, we assess fetal growth, Doppler studies, the umbilical artery, middle cerebral artery, and ductus venosus. We also assess the cervical length to screen for preterm labor, which is also a common complication in multiple pregnancies. We also check the amniotic fluid volume. At 18 to 22 weeks, we perform a detailed fetal anomaly scan because we know that twins or multiple pregnancies have a higher risk of congenital abnormalities. So at 18 to 22 weeks, we perform a detailed fetal anomaly scan. And if there are signs of twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, we also do a fetal echocardiography. What are the common complications that we see in our unit for monochorionic pregnancies? Twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome affecting about 10 to 15%. Twin arterial perfusion syndrome, which is a bit rare, maybe affecting less than 5%. Selective fetal growth restriction is a common complication that we see in our unit. Single intrauterine fetal demise is also a common complication. Preterm labor and rarely TREP syndrome. I think this year we have seen just one case. So for monochorionic pregnancies, at each visit, we document the estimated fetal weight of each fetus and the discordance. If it's more than 25%, some literature quote 20%, others 15%. But for our unit, we are using 20-25%. So if the discrepancy is higher than that, we diagnose selective fetal growth restriction. And if it's associated with amniotic fluid volume discrepancies, then we'll be considering the diagnosis of twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. We also assess the amniotic fluid volumes in each sac using the single deepest pool. We document the measurement for each twin, and we also calculate the amniotic fluid volume discordance. We also check for membrane folding. We assess the fetal urinary bladder filling for each fetus, and the Doppler studies, as I mentioned earlier on, the umbilical, midcerebral, and ductus venosus. We also note if there are any discordances in the midcerebral artery Doppler studies, especially the peak systolic velocity. So twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome is the sort of the most common complication that we manage for monochorionic twins. And for this, we screen each type, each set of monochorionic twins from 16 weeks. We screen every 2 weeks. We are sort of looking for twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. That's why we are checking the fetal weights. We check the Doppler studies and the amniotic fluid volume, as well as the bladder filling of both twins. If we diagnose twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, we classify using the Quintero staging system. And if they are still at stage 1, we manage conservatively. And sometimes with serial amnioreduction, if it's stage 2 and more than 26 weeks. In our unit at the moment, conservative management and amnioreduction are the only options of management that are available. And we don't have laser ablation, septostomy, or cord coagulation at the moment. We are hoping that in the future we'll get the necessary training and we'll start offering these services as well. Selective fetal growth restriction and single intrauterine fetal demise. We diagnose selective fetal growth restriction when there's a discordance of, I've already mentioned that, about 20 to 25%. We have checked the fetal weights. We calculate the difference. Actually, the scan machine calculates the difference for us. It gives us the percentage discordance. Or we have checked the fetal weights and one of the twins has fetal growth restriction, even if there is no discordance, but one of them is small, less than 10%. So those are the two criteria that we use. So once we pick that up, we scan them every 2 weeks, assessing the fetal weights, the Doppler studies, and amniotic fluid volume. We deliver according to the gestational age and Doppler studies of the smaller twin. Once the smaller twin is showing signs of being compromised, we deliver. If we've managed to push the pregnancy beyond 34, 35 weeks, we also deliver then. For single intrauterine fetal demise, we do weekly Doppler studies of the survivor twin until they have stabilized. Once they've stabilized, we can then start following them up after every 2 weeks, checking for the growth. And also, we are supposed to do central nervous system MRI scanning of the survivor, but at the moment, it's not available in our setting. So for us, we just scan, checking the fetal weight, amniotic fluid volume, and Doppler studies as well. If we have managed to push the pregnancy beyond 34, 35 weeks, then we deliver. If the survivor is showing any sign of being compromised and they have a good fetal weight, we also deliver. For monochorionic twins, we advise delivery for monochorionic monoamniotic between 32 and 34 weeks, and monochorionic diamniotic between 36 and 37 weeks. Now I'll move on to dichorionic twins. We have already said we start scanning them in the first trimester, and we do the same things that we do for the monochorionic. For these ones, we then start following them up in the second trimester from around 18 to 22 weeks. We perform four weekly assessment of the fetal weight, fetal Doppler studies, and amniotic fluid volume, and the cervical length to screen for preterm labor. We deliver uncomplicated dichorionic twins between 37 and 38 weeks. What are the common complications that we see in dichorionic twins? Again, selective fetal growth restriction, which is sort of more common in dichorionic twins compared to what we see in monochorionic twins. Selective intrauterine fetal demise, discordance for fetal abnormalities, preterm labor, and preeclampsia. In our setting, for dichorionic twins, the most common cause of single intrauterine fetal demise include preeclampsia, selective fetal growth restriction as a result of preeclampsia affecting one of the placenta and one of the twins. We can also have, we have also noticed discordance of fetal abnormalities affecting dichorionic twins and leading to death of one of the twins. Again, for the diagnostic criteria for selective fetal growth restriction, we use the discordance in estimated fetal weight of more than 20-25%, and one twin who is showing signs of fetal growth restriction with an estimated fetal weight of less than 10%. Once we pick this, we change from the monthly assessment to 2 weekly growth scans and checking the fetal weight, Doppler studies, and amniotic fluid of both twins. We deliver once the gestational age has gone beyond 34 to 35 weeks, or if the Doppler studies of the affected twin are showing signs of compromise. For selective intrauterine fetal demise for dichorionic twins, we follow them up every week as for the monochorionic until they have stabilized, until the Doppler studies have stabilized. Once they stabilize, we start seeing them every 2 weeks, following up on the growth, checking the fetal weight, Doppler studies, and amniotic fluid volume. Once they go beyond 34 to 35 weeks, we can advise delivery, or when the survivor is showing signs of compromise. For triplets and higher order, so far we have managed, the highest order that we have managed are quadruplets. So for the triplets and higher order, again, we perform the first trimester scan. This one is a bit difficult when the babies are many. We assess everything. As for the monochorionic and dichorionic, labeling the twins, the fetuses, which is a bit difficult because now there are many. That's when we stick to the gender and also placental positions as well. We monitor them like we do for the monochorionic twins, assessing the fetal weight, Doppler studies, cervical length, and amniotic fluid volume every 2 weeks from around 16 weeks. We perform a detailed second trimester scan, knowing that the rates of congenital malformations are actually even higher when the babies are many like this. The most common complications that we see are similar to those that we see in monochorionic twins, and these include selective fetal growth restriction, twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome, single intrauterine fetal demise, and most commonly preterm labor. We usually advise delivery of triplets from around 32 to 34 weeks and quadruplets around 30 to 32 weeks. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening. I think at this point I will take questions, or I'll hand over to the chair.